Okay, these videos are going to be a little out of order, mostly because I have the rest of the herd of deers that I purchased sitting outside, but I wanted to get the 322 in here and at least see if I could remedy that terrible sound that it's making. Pretty sure, as I said in the previous video, that it's missing on one cylinder, or it's only running on 2 of the 3. So what we're going to do, since it's been running like this for a while, I don't know why yet, but what I've done is, well, actually, we'll cover one thing, the first things first. Because it's been running like this for a while, the first thing I'm going to do, and I've already done it, but then I'm going to set it up the camera to show you, we're going to check the oil, because most likely the oil is full of gas, and so there's not as much, the lubricating properties of the oil has most likely been diluted over time. So what we're going to do is we're going to check the oil level and see if it's over full, which I can tell you it is, but I'll go ahead and show you that. All right, so since I have to do this two-handed, I went ahead and put you on the tripod. Wipe dipstick off. I mean, checking oil is checking oil, right? And I'm just going to dip it in there, and then you can see on the video, there's the top of the full, and it's way up here. Hopefully you can see that on video if I can get any closer. So I mean, we're good bit over. Give it the sniff test. Smells like gas. So the first thing we need to do is an oil change. So as I said in the previous video, these machines sat for quite a while. So sitting for quite a while means that probably the oil hasn't been changed since sometime in the mid-2000s. That's my guess. So we're gonna have to change the oil, get all that gas out of there. Filter for this is the same as all the other Yanmar engines. Sorry, holding upside down. Oh no, it's I guess on both sides. M806 418, pretty ubiquitous filter. Sadly, I missed out on an entire box of filters for this thing in the 318s. I wasn't paying attention, and the gentleman, his estate had just a gigantic box of filters, and I wasn't paying attention. Whole box of filters, probably I don't know, there were probably 20 in there, sold for like 20 bucks. So, my fault. But I'm going to go ahead and drop the oil out of this. Since I'm not much set up to work on gas engines like this, I just pulled some Valvoline 10W30. Should be perfectly fine for intents and purposes here. We could get into all kinds of oil arguments, and that would last for decades. But, I mean, normally when I'm doing service, I'm either working on Kohlers, Odans, or diesel Yanmars. Diesel around here, all the diesel Yanmars get the John Deere Plus 52, and all of the Kohlers and Onans just get straight 30 weight. So that's one of those things. But now back to what I was talking about before. Let me take you off the tripod here. Anticipation of solving this problem today, which I don't know if I will. Last night I was like, oh, I'll just replace the spark plugs. You know, maybe it's a fouled spark plug or something. So I got to digging through another box of parts that I bought. Aha, 322 tractor. And then, I'll wait for it. We had one of those typical farmer moments. Ta-da, a used spark plug. So, that's what that was. It was a used spark plug. So all 3 of them are used, unfortunately. So I bebopped down to Deere this morning and got me some new ones. Actually, Deere only had 1, so I had to go to the auto parts store for the other 2. Interestingly enough, everybody says Deere has higher prices. The auto parts store was 6 cents more expensive than Deere. I think the Deere plug was $274 or $276. And the auto parts store was $280 something. I'll have to go look at the receipt now. I forgot. I noted it when I picked it up, and now I can't. I know there was 6 cents difference in there. So it goes to show you that Deere's not always that expensive. So anyway, let me get these plugs replaced. I'll set you up on camera. I think all I have to do is take the air cleaner off. Keep in mind, I have never worked on one of these Yanmar gas engines before. But it looks like the plugs are done in there. Got some type of cap over the plug right there. So I'll take the take the air filter off, and we'll go from there. All right, I will have to admit, I practiced this because I wasn't sure what I was getting into. So basically, to remove this, all you have to do is loosen that nut right there, and then you should be able to just pop that out like that. Just a little lip in there, air filters in there, AM 108242. Air filter actually looks pretty good, so I'm not too worried about that. And then you have access to your spark plug wires. Let me set the camera up on the other side of the tractor. Okay, hopefully you can see this. I will close the garage doors a little bit more, which is terrible because it's a gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous day outside. Let's start here in the back, and we'll place these one at a time. So I'm just going to pull the covers off based on these. Hopefully this fits. Yep. That one's decently clean. Certainly nothing to be concerned about. I'll just leave that right there. That way we know which one came out of which cylinder. Won't throw it away quite yet. That's interesting. So these are very much different plugs. This is the old plug is one's a Champion, one's an NGK, so I don't know if the number's the same, but anyway, it just looks a little different. Hopefully this fits. Yep. Okay, so put that one right back here. I'll get this one started. All snug. Should be good to go. Now we'll go ahead and do the next one. And what I'm doing is, well, we'll put that right there. Is I want to do this before I change the oil. I'm not going to run it, but I figure I have to do it all, so we might as well start at our top and work our way down. Okay. So that one looks a little fouled up. Wonder if that's our problem child right there. Very possible. Good grief. Flip number 2. This is probably one of those, grab my pliers here. It's one of those locations that doesn't want to give you your spark plug socket back. Hopefully I can get this squeezed between here. There we go. Now that one's a little odd on the top. Looks a little burned. Kind of interesting. That one looks a little fouled up. You can see that. I'll try to remember to take still pictures of these when I get done. I'm terrible about taking still pictures, but I can try to say I'm going to remember to do that. Okay, here we go. So now let's change the oil. Actually, I'll go ahead and hook back up my spark plug wires here. Normally I would say I'm going to run it for a few minutes, but I really don't want to with all that gas in the oil. So we're just going to go ahead and straight change the oil, and then I'll probably change it again. Leave those right there for right now. Alright, so let me get set up to change the oil. Alright, so hopefully you can see this, but that is somewhat troublesome right there. That's another Farmer Fix 101. And after doing some sizing, definitely a 3/4 inch nut that's in there. So we're going to see if we can't break it loose. I would suspect that it's going to be, I'm just going to rock, oh there we go. So I don't know if the oil pan has been damaged. He's just got what looks like just a plain O-ring under there. That oil should not drain like that. Shows you how much gas is in it. Be really good for starting a fire. So I'm going to let that drain, and after that drains for a little bit, we'll replace the filter. Alright, well, you missed the oil filter change and the oil fill. Evidently yours truly forgot to either, I think I tried to press the button and I thought I had pressed it, but I didn't. And when I got done filling it and everything, there was no video. It was still sitting on the regular screen. So maybe there is a video and it just went off or something. But I just filled it through this. I was reminded, because it was a really good lesson in why you should have the dipstick up. If you're filling through the valve cover, it has to drain down through the engine, so it needs somewhere for all the air to go. Fortunately, I didn't overfill while it was trying to drain down, but it almost came out of the fill plug here. But just pop the oil fill or the oil dipstick and it was fine. I've got it right at the full level. I've already checked that. And so now what we're going to try to do is we're going to start it. Hopefully our spark plug swap has helped. If not, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to check compression and check spark. Now, I could have checked spark already. One of the reasons I did not is because I needed to change the oil anyway. I knew that I needed to do all this. I needed to take the air cleaner off. So why not replace the spark plugs when it's been sitting this long? So, I mean, for $8 I replaced a spark plug, and those were pretty easy to replace. I could have tested the compression, but then you have to work through all that. So we're just going to do, that's why I replaced the spark plugs and changed the oil. So let's see if it'll start here. It runs a little bit better. I expected it to run a little bit smoother. Let's see if it'll. So it's still running a little rough. Maybe I'll even dump some seafoam in it and drive it around. I should test the compression first. So that's what we're going to do first. I'm going to go ahead and test each cylinder's compression. So let me get up to do that, and I got to look up a spec for it because I don't know off the top of my head. Let me get set up to test the compression and test spark. That way that's out of the way, and we'll go from there. Alright, so here's my spark testing set up, and I have tested the front and the back plugs, but then I went to go test the middle one, and let's see if I can do this one-handed. Actually here, I'm going to have to hold the neutral lever over. So hold on. I don't know if you can see that, but there's no spark there. So that's definitely my problem child. Either the coil, the wire, something in there is not quite right. So that's what we're faced with. So now it's a matter, now we know the problem. So we know that one cylinder's dead. So the question becomes, is it the coil or is it something else? Is it something that's fixable now? I did, when I stopped at Deere to get the plugs, because I thought it might be the coil, I asked the price of the coil. The new coils are $58 a piece. So, I mean, obviously you don't want to spend $58, but I think that's the next step, is to take this coil off there and test it. Now, I don't have, I believe it's a CTM3. Actually, I might. I need to go look and see what kind of manuals I have for this thing. See if it has a resistance for a coil, to see if that coil, check to see if that coil's bad. At the same time, I need to go through and inspect the wiring harness. I'm sitting here trying to figure out where exactly these wires go. I think they come, I don't know. Huh. Oh. They come right here and go there and then disappear. So I'll check through that. I'm guessing the coil's bad. That's my suspect, in which case I'll need a new coil. But let me do some poking around and I'll let you know what I come back with. So I didn't video a lot of what I just did, mostly because, one, I was using my phone as I only have an electronic copy of TM1591, which will contain all of the troubleshooting for this. And secondly, I was in a bit of a rush because it is almost, well, it is 5 o'clock now. And I got to thinking about it, is if I was able to determine the problem and place an order through Deere, I could get the part tomorrow, which I have ordered the part. So we know that this middle cylinder is our trouble cylinder, and I started off basically testing voltage and everything. I have voltage at the coils. The next step would be voltage at the pulsar coils down there, at which case I had voltage, at least it looks like I had voltage on all of them. Those are actually a little harder to test because of how they're sitting in the machine. Basically, you have to take these pins out, or those connectors out right in there. But step 7J in 1591 in the electrical troubleshooting section is where I found the next bit of information. If you take the wires off and you test the resistance across the coil, it should be between, I believe, 5.8 and, I don't know where my phone is at, 5.8 and, or 3.8 and 5.3, something along those lines. This one right here, this coil test at 5.0 ohms. This one's at 4.9 ohms. And this one is at 1.2 ohms. So it tells me that the spark on this one, that coil's bad. A new coil is $58.94, and I went ahead and when I talked to parts, they said like an extra $12 to get it here overnight versus getting it here on Wednesday or Thursday. So I went ahead and paid that. So we'll have, you know, like $75 after tax and everything, and a new coil here. But I'll have it here tomorrow, and we can get this machine back running again, and we should be good to go. Now that I've changed the oil, we still have to change the transaxle fluid in this machine, so we'll eventually get to that. We will also, and I'll probably release this video before I get the coil, just because of how videos are going. I don't think, I looked in under the radiator, and the coolant looks really good. So we're not going to do anything with the coolant for right now, at least not in the near term. Put that back on there. There we go. So we're not going to do anything with the coolant right now. As soon as I get the coil, we'll make sure it runs and everything, runs well, and we will go ahead and get it all cleaned up. Probably what I'll do is, I've got a little bit of slop here in the front axle. Probably adjust those bolts out just a hair. When I was running it the other day, I'll go ahead and check the air gap and the PTO, things like that. I don't know if I'm going to check I don't know if I'm going to change the hydraulic or the differential fluid. I haven't decided that yet, but we'll eventually get there. So hopefully you learned a little bit by just troubleshooting. Technical manuals are invaluable. Normally I like to have paper copies, but in this particular case I only had an electronic copy that basically told me everything I needed to do. Started off very simple with voltage. Tested the voltage at the positive terminal, which is right here where my finger's at. So test the positive, or test the voltage. I had 11.72 volts at all of them, which was appropriate, with just the ignition on. Then after the voltage test, you want to go ahead and test the pulsar coils, which are in here. They're down there, or you can see tip of my finger, that's where it goes into the engine. You have to test the negative side of that, or I can't remember now, positive, negative, one of the side, well, obviously, but you have to test the side of that. And then you test each one of the pulsar coils with a test light. After you've done that, then you can come up here and test the resistance. If the problem is not there, you test the resistance on the coil. Now, I'm not going to say that coil is going to 100% solve it, but it should, because, I mean, obviously the coil tested bad, so it's probably not generating the appropriate spark. So I'm not going to take this coil out until I get the new one, mostly because I'm afraid that I'll get wires confused, things like that. So hopefully this video is helpful, and thanks for watching.